Welcome to Season 3 of Far Reach Voyages, where we share our love of sailing and adventure travel. So, June 21st, about 06:15. Crazy night last night. We were under a staysail only this morning at 4:30. I got a couple hours of sleep last night. When I woke up, the boat was just tearing down the waves. Probably 8.5 knots. So I went ahead and hauled that main down the rest of the way. And Strong Track was just a hero. The sail came down, got hung up a little bit on the spreader, but she came down. Got her in the gallows. Had a boom strapped in the gallows. So we're almost to 30 north, and we're at 7645 west. Cape Horn wind vane was just did super job last night, a real hero too. And the servo blade did not come off due to all the sargasso. I don't know if we're out of most of the sargasso or I don't know. I'm just glad it didn't pop off last night. And the boat's steering just really well. Some of the waves here, 10 feet. Steep though. Wave period's pretty short. The wind's probably 25, gusting 30. It's quite comfortable inside. Visitor up there. So you can probably hear Chris Parker in the background. He's covering the Caribbean, and that's still when he gives me my morning weather. Probably should have switched to the East Coast time, but we didn't have a way to coordinate that. Last time we did it, we crossed a certain line of latitude. But we just didn't have that conversation this time, so he's been continuing to send it to me when he gives forecasts for his subscribers during the Caribbean forecast at 06. We're making about 6 knots, and when I woke up this morning, I think I mentioned we were pretty much sustained. 7.8, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7. What's nice about having this boom gallows frame is that now the boom is strapped in, it becomes something to hold on to. You know, it's securely snugged into the gallows, it can't get away. So we just got the staysail up, and then I have 2 reefs in the staysail, but I shouldn't need either of them today. I mentioned earlier, the main is down and the boom is lashed into the gallows, and we just got the staysail up, pulling us at about 6 knots. I need to go more that way, but it's a little hairy on deck. I didn't want to film while we were sort of broad reaching across that. I have to move the solar panel over in a little bit, get some more sun. The wind's come around in the west, and we were sort of jogging along on a reach under just a staysail, and she does okay like that. But we needed a little more westing. We were kind of going about 030, and we needed to be going 330. And I knew I needed a main to do that. So I put the double reef main back up. The wind's down about 20-25 knots. And they're supposed to diminish a little bit more this afternoon. And the seas are down, so felt like it was a good choice. So I just got her set up. We're making about 5.5 knots. We got just enough westing. Right there on the compass says 0. We actually need 330 true, and you had about 14 degrees for magnetic, so we're pretty close. Just need to try to get west to 77 west and not be east. There's a whole line of thunderstorms going to be east of 77 west starting tomorrow. We've got about 150 miles to go on this heading before we enter the Gulf Stream crossing point. And that'll be tomorrow. In the morning, on Saturday, 22nd, the wind is supposed to drop away. So a cold front comes through and then go north. Like 10 knots, 10 to 15. I don't know what that's going to do to the Gulf Stream. So I don't know that I can tack into the Gulf Stream with 10 or 15 knots of north wind with all this sea running. I don't know what that'll do. It may just be too much. So if that happens and the wind goes north, I'd just bear off to the northeast, which is why I need to get more westing now, and parallel the Gulf Stream. And then as soon as the wind switches around to the southeast and south, which is supposed to do after a few hours, then I could tack back and cross the Gulf Stream. But the wind's supposed to be light for the next couple of days. You wouldn't know it by looking out here today. And that'll make the last couple hundred miles of getting home sort of slow and not really laborious, but slow. Probably frustrating because there's going to be some sea left over, and it's always hard in light air when there's big sloppy swell left over. I'm not complaining. It's great to be out here. I'm ready to get home. It's a 43-foot sailboat this morning came up behind us. They had their main and jib out, you know, crew and everything. They're about a mile off. I just had my staysail up and had my breakfast and read a while and sort of contemplated what I wanted to do. They're going to Beaufort too. They also have an engine, so they'll just motor across when the wind goes light. Cape Horn wind vane doing her thing. A little cushions down there because when the servo blade was popping off and when all that sargasso, I laid across that on my chest to reach over the side and reconnect the servo blade. It doesn't come completely off, it just trips back 45 degrees and you have to hook it back in position. And it hasn't done that. Thank goodness it didn't do it last night. Just as solid as could be. I don't think it's a Cape Horn issue. I think it's just all the sargasso. It's just tough on wind vanes. I'll talk to Eves about it some more when I get home. Some folks probably wonder what it's like to be on a small boat like this, in this kind of weather. It's not too bad. When we gutted the boat and rebuilt her, we lined everything with insulation, so all the hull's insulated, the overhead's insulated, so it helped a lot to keep the temperature consistent inside, but also to deaden a lot of noises. And our galleys are all open, and you can see there's some things askew up there. You just can't keep everything in its place. We carry bag of microfiber cloths that we roll up and we stuff in places to try to keep the rattles down and just do the best you can. And the leak cloth rigged up on that bunk. That's on the high side. I can put stuff up there if I need to in a hurry. It won't come crashing down on the cabin sole. And then we usually have a beach towel out on the settees when we're sailing offshore, just to protect the fabric. It's great Sunbrella velvet fabric, but put a towel down for keeping sunblock and salty bodies off the material. There's the other berth made up, the lee cloth down, and the nav station. We turn the sits tub into a wet locker, which is nice because the door raid vent up here comes down and helps dry things out. Double berth, which we don't use offshore. See, there's and then that's where the engine would have been. That space back there where the cooler is 8 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 2 feet tall. So there's no inboard engine in the boat. Quarter berth, which we don't use. Now I don't even bring the cushions, I just use it to put tools and keep potatoes and fruit back there and catch all AIS. So that's what it's like inside the boat. There's a lot of motion in here, which is betrayed by the camera. There's plenty of motion in here, and you have to hold on when you walk through. And you know, eating is a challenge, and even pouring something into a glass takes a certain amount of art and skill to pull that one off. I don't even try to make coffee on a day like this. Not good coffee. I might have some instant coffee I use sometimes. Okay, that's it. Tour of the far reach underway. We were sailing along all happy about 9:30 on Saturday morning, working our way up to the Gulf Stream entrance point. I stuck my head up out of the companionway and a squall was right there, big one. I had just enough time to run off and drop the jib behind the main and then turn the boat into the wind and get a second reef in the main. And got the helm lashed before reaching about 2.5 knots. It's already backed off quite a bit. Gulf Stream's over that way, 40 miles or so. Here's thunder. That's south behind us. That's northeast. I didn't even see that thing. It was sort of just a hazy horizon. Thing will be passed here shortly, and we can resume our course towards the Gulf Stream entrance point. By the time we get to the Gulf Stream, this wind should have gone around to the east and then southeast, and we'll be able to get across, I think. Like some excitement on Saturday morning. Had the squall this morning at after 10, I think. Lasted about an hour. We had winds around 50 knots for a while. We just sort of hove to with the double reef main. Fore reached a little bit. And that died out and the wind kind of worked its way around to the northeast and the east and the southeast, but it was almost imperceptible, the wind, and the big leftover sea kicked up by that squall. Actually, it was a front that passed, a cold front. We couldn't do much. Got some sails up and did what I could. And finally, it looked like it was going to steady up in the southeast, so I set the pole out on the port side with a working jib. We ran wing and wing for about 15 minutes. The wind went southwest, which suited me better anyway. So I dropped the pole, brought the working jib across, and we've got some apparent wind now we're creating by moving forward. We're on a close reach. We're steering about 3, 4, 5 degrees magnetic. The home is a little bit to the right, just a little bit, but we're trying to stay west of 77 west because tonight there's supposed to be a whole series of, well, to use Chris Parker's word, violent thunderstorms. So if we felt like if we could stay west of 77, we'd be out of the worst of it. But I think it's just going to depend. I don't know how you know exactly where those things are going to be, but it's good to be sailing. It's good to hear the lee bow wave. We're making 5 knots. If this wind would hold like this, we could take it all the way home. And where home is about, once we get to the Gulf Stream entry point, which is about 25 miles from here maybe, on this azimuth, then we'll be in the Gulf Stream, and we'll be being swept north a little bit. We'll be, Gulf Stream's going north-northeast at that point. We're trying to go north, so it'll kind of carry us to the north, and we'll sail across it diagonally. And we ought to be in it sometime late afternoon. About the time those thunderstorms show up. What are you gonna do? Anyway, it turns out to be a nice day for sailing. Cirrus clouds, that's where I'm expecting those thunderstorms to come from. The frontal system is off that way somewhere. Good riddance. It's warm, the deck's quite warm on my feet. Wind's about, I don't know, 10 or 12 knots, not much more than that. So if you're running downwind, you have to subtract the wind speed, your boat speed from the wind speed to get your relative wind, which is less. But when you're reaching like this and we're moving forward at 5 knots, we're creating additional wind, just helping the boat sail faster. Some more wind over the deck. Well, it's been an interesting 12 days. We should be home this Saturday. Probably be home Monday morning. We'll see. We're still supposed to have a lot of light air between here and there, so it's all about wind angles now. If it's southwest, we're trying to go north, and it's a broad reach. It's not as effective for us as if it were a westerly, but we'll take what we can get and got to wring every knot out of it. I don't think I've ever seen a sunrise like that. Join us for the last episode of Season 3. We have a tough night crossing the Gulf Stream and then experience a fabulous sunrise. A pod of dolphins escorts us into Onslow Bay, and we finally make landfall at Cape Lookout. If you enjoyed this episode of Far Reach Voyages, let us know in the comments. Also, consider liking and subscribing, as it tells us you would like to see more videos and it helps the channel grow. See you next episode.